Hi folks, Doc here. I went out and did a deal this morning. It was raining. It's finally stopped, so I can actually look over what I picked up. And I can show you what I picked up. Something I've been wanting to play around with for a while. Don't know what I'm doing with it yet, but I'm sure you all have some suggestions. So stick around and I'll show you what I got. And there it is. The seller believes it was a 1983. I believe that's a Yamaha G1 Golf cart. And that's what I just picked up for a fairly reasonable price, considering that these things seem to be gold around here and you can't get a runner for under $1,000. The body's a little bit beat up, but it's nothing too horrible. There's a crack in the front. I'll go around and show you that in a minute. A little bit of a crack in the bottom corner there. One there. And there's a crappy spray paint job on it. And the seats are torn to rat crap. Big surprise. Yeah, there's the crack in the corner there. Came with that winch, which is probably, I don't know, just a 1,500 pound piece of whatever that the guy used to use to load it into his pickup truck. Yeah, whatever. 4 tires hold air. 2 trailer tires on the front. A lawn tractor turf tire on the one rear. Golf cart tire on the other rear. But for the most part, it's all there. Under the hood is where the interesting stuff is. See if I can spring this open one-handed. Okay. So what we have here is a 215cc Yamaha 2-stroke. Got that starter generator deal there, the CVT. There's some stuff missing. The original air box is gone, and somebody did this silly little valve cover intake filter thing there, which couldn't have flowed for crap. And the choke cable is just kind of hanging here, and it looks like the arm broke off the choke. I don't even know what the hell that is. Muffler's kind of loose. That's a big ass can, eh? This thing must have been fairly quiet. There's the electrical work on the fender there. It's kind of neat. The whole engine is on the suspension swing arm. Let's see if I can bounce this thing for you. There you go. Alright, so here's the deal. The engine is locked up solid. The guy that owned this was a contractor working in subdivisions, building whole subdivisions at a time, and he used this to basically bomb around from site to site to site. And one of the guys, I guess, supposedly ran it out of fuel. And when he refilled it, he put straight gasoline in and not 2-stroke mix. Now, originally, these things had, from what I can ascertain, a separate oil reservoir and a pump. And I guess that got deleted at some point, like we see so often on the older 2-strokes, and then they just mix it in the fuel, which, depending on the engine, you can get away with or not. Anyways, the guy apparently put straight gas in and burnt the engine up. It's lock solid. I can't turn this to save my life. Now, the thing about these old 2-stroke golf carts is that reverse was not achieved through the gearbox, but through the engine itself. And what would happen is to go forward, it would start the engine and drive forward. To go in reverse, it would start the engine in reverse and drive the engine in reverse. And this starter generator here was responsible for cranking it in either one direction or the other, based on these 2 solenoids on the fender, or relays. And the key switch would turn to one direction or the other. And to demonstrate, I've loosened off this belt, because like I said, the engine was lock solid. But you would turn the key, we'll go to forward, and step on the pedal, and when you did, it would crank her over and forward. And then to go reverse, it would shut the engine off, and spin that sucker in reverse. I'm going to be removing that alarm very shortly. So from what I can ascertain, the CVT would do its thing normally in forward gear, and in reverse it would just stay locked up in the slow position. I guess you only want to go so fast in reverse anyways. So the situation is as follows. I need to either rebuild or replace the engine. So I'm going to have to climb on the interwebs there and find out what parts are going to be worth for this thing. The seller seemed to think that it was actually in the bottom end that was mangled. He said he saw some scoring on the piston and stuff like that, but he says he feels like the real damage is in the bottom end, you know, bearing, whatever. That's possible, and we'll have to see what it would cost to, you know, acquire all the parts and crankshaft and, you know, connecting rod and piston and rings and possibly even the jug, depending on if that's particularly damaged or not. Other options could probably boil down to just kissing reverse goodbye, which is kind of unfortunate. Something like this you don't really want to have to push to back it up. You know, I could put in a Honda GX engine, which I've got. You know, I've got a GX 390 that I could smash in there. And that would be good for about 13 horse. It's my understanding the factory engine was about 8. Or I could even think about putting that diesel APU engine in there. Anybody else got a diesel golf cart? I don't know. Alright, so I got the engine freed up. And the cylinder wall looks good. I don't know how well this is going to show on camera. But even though the cylinder wall looks good, there's a hell of a lot of play in the piston. And the piston skirt itself is pretty beat up. And I think the rings are done too. Just give me a second, I'm going to set up the bore scope and see if I can show you. Okay, so I'm holding this all in a weird angle and it's awkward as hell with the camera. But looking through the exhaust port, you can see it looks like the top ring is missing completely. The piston is mashed, and you see that wicked score on that piston right there? Deadly. So we're definitely into some rebuilding action. The image is kind of upside down, and what you see on the right hand side of your screen would be the top ring, or the top ring groove, and on the left hand side is the bottom groove. And you see that wicked score right there. That's nasty. I don't know if the camera's going to be able to focus in the bore here. There we go. I can actually get the camera easier than I can get my face in there. But just move the piston up and you can see that gnarly score there. Before I pulled the cylinder head off, I hooked up the compression gauge and I was getting 25 psi at best. So that's definitely not conducive to a running two-stroke especially. Get the piston up to top dead center here. Wicked amount of slap. But I can at least show you the starter generator operation properly now. That's reverse. Forward. Okay, so with the head back on her, I'm just going to run a compression test. Yeah, what is that, 20 pounds? Bugger all. Not going anywhere on 20 psi. Alright, so I figured I'd just tuck under the front of this thing and have a quick look. It's got a single A-arm suspension with what basically amounts to some radius rods, some locating rods, and coilover shocks. And a steering box. I was actually kind of hoping to find a rack under here, but maybe it's better that I didn't, because if it had a rack I'd probably be kind of inclined to peel the rack out and stick it in something else, which would leave me with a golf cart chassis with no steering. I think I'm better off using this chassis as it is. Pretty reasonably sure these front tires should be wide like the rear, and somebody just swapped these in because it's a common 4-on-4 pattern. These are 480 by 480 by 8, thank you, Carlisle Sport Trails, which are the exact same tires I used on the front of the Diesel Weasel. Just an easy swap for somebody that needed to put new tires on this thing, I suppose. Okay, so I've determined that the piston's pretty beat up and the rings are shot, and with all the slop in there, I don't know what kind of shape the connecting rod's in. The one big thing that I'm not certain about until I completely tear the engine down is what the crank journal looks like on the crankshaft. And depending on whether that bearing is beat up or the journal's hogged out or anything like that, is going to probably make a bit of a difference on pricing for rebuild. Based on what I've seen so far, you know, I could certainly rebuild this engine and get it running back more or less the way it should be, and I'm kind of a little bit inclined to do that for simplicity's sake. And you know, I'm not trying to scab in another engine that doesn't belong there and having to muck with motor mounts and yada yada yada. So I don't know, I'm going to be pricing out some rebuild parts. As far as what else to do to this is concerned, gotta admit, I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards some serious rubber and locking it up and maybe a little bit of a lift, and just make this a little bit of an off-road capable toy thing. I don't know, let me know what you want to see out of this, and you know, I'll consider your suggestions and maybe we'll develop a plan together. So throw some comments in the comment section. Until next time, take care of yourself. Thanks.